first, I mean, when you say that the protests have a problematic class composition, the left in Eastern Europe still also has a problematic class composition. That being said, like one of, I think, the issues, at least in Bulgaria, that we encounter, you know, in the protests is that it is our own kin in a certain way, our own colleagues that have now come out, and we are kind of posed against them in a certain way, or at least our ostensible absence has been felt and discussed a lot. What is interesting, at least in the Bulgarian case, is that this ostensible absence, for the first time this summer, was articulated in the media by a number of right and left-wing commentators who, for the first time, acknowledged the fact that the Socialist Party is not left. And they said, you know, it's time for a new left. Now, they did recognize certain parts of the new left as such, so obviously the left is more or less visible. But then the question still remains, I think, on the level of this, you know, more or less visible left, of how to articulate its presence rather than its absence. And it has been a very difficult issue in Bulgaria, where, for example, also the trade unions are absent. I mean, so, like, unlike Slovenia, where, you know, maybe until a certain moment they were seen as a partner for people, like in Bulgaria, the trade unions over the last, especially decade, have literally betrayed all the causes and have struck the deals on the lowest possible conditions for the workers, and have usually sided with the state and, you know, the owners with privatization deals, trying to keep sometimes collective contracts, but not really. So in a certain way, it is a small, very Sofia-centered left in our country that has probably 3 or 4 kind of representative organizations that has to somehow come up with a strategy of how to deal with protests. And what has been, I'd say, you know, there were kind of 3 or maybe two kind of main strategies. One was of silence, you know, so one was this indignant silence, or, you know, this thing of, you know, we are still kind of targeting the part of the electorate of the Socialist Party. So, you know, if we want them to vote for us, you know, in some kind of potential situation, we should now shut up and, you know, like kind of at least try not to appear really against the Socialist Party. For me, this was a really missed opportunity to articulate a certain, you know, demand. The second strategy was a very voicey strategy, which a number of, especially journalists from the left in Bulgaria took, which would be a rejection of the protests as, I mean, middle-class capitalists and so forth, but no clear rejection of the Socialist Party and its involvement in this. So in a certain way, there was this whole eclipsing of the fact that we have a very heavy state socialist legacy that we somehow have to come to terms with in order to address the protesters, who many times come from the environments of the, well, politically and socially repressed under state socialism. And so the third strategy has been, and this is kind of very difficult to see, it's a, you know, because it is rather individual strategy than collective one, is individual engagement, like going to the street, protesting, but also trying to be present there and kind of, you know, through certain interventions change the debate. For me, the last strategy has always seemed the most valid one. And this said, it's the most difficult one, because then how do you decide where do you intervene? Like, then you have the protests and you have the counter-protests. You have, you know, the kind of middle classes, you know, educated people that go to protest against corruption, which does exist, against, at the end of the day, a capitalist elite. And you have the counter-protests, who are protesters who are the ones that you would also side with in a certain way, but who support this elite because of the crumbs that they leave to them. So it is a very kind of dubious situation of the left, and in a certain way it is no surprise that it has not been able to act effectively, because it is kind of in the middle of the contradiction. And just that being said, at the same time, what we are witnessing is there are so many more problems, new legislation, new appointments happening, and there is a huge wave of migrants and refugees coming into Bulgaria, and that's yet another kind of point of intervention next to the protests. And it is very difficult for the 15 to 150 people that nowadays left in Bulgaria is to be on all of these fronts.